we really look forward to this opportunity to take a look back at the past year with you all and talk about what we've got on our horizon. There's been, I'll just briefly say it's been an incredibly busy year at Jefferson County, and we're going to share a number of changes and innovations that we're working on. And I think I was looking at who was logging in. I know most of you, but if I haven't met you yet, I look forward to the opportunity to meet you. And I am a 40-year resident of Jefferson County, and I represent District 2 and all of the county. And in fact, spent 16 hours working yesterday, driving to Olympia and back, and spending 7 hours on Zoom in the midst of it. So yes, being a county commissioner is a full-time job. That's one of the most frequent questions I get. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark McCauley to introduce himself.
Yeah, let me say good morning to the viewers and guests of this cafe this morning. I'm honored to be included in this event, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to talk about Jefferson County. This is my second chief executive job in a Washington county. I came from Clark County, I think the fourth largest county in the state. And I have to tell you that this county is amazing. We have incredible leaders, elected officials, department directors, and employees. And I'm proud to be sitting here with Heidi to tell their story to you folks this morning.
Thanks, Mark. So we're just going to go through our slides and go back and forth a bit, and we'll answer questions at the end. So hold your questions till the end, write them down. Mark, will you go to the next slide? So another question I get frequently, a lot from new residents, but from other folks as well, is what are all the things the county is responsible for? And in my first 2 years as a commissioner, I have taken a deep dive into understanding all of the things the county has in its wheelhouse. And I'm just going to go over a little bit of it for you, and then Mark's going to talk about our team on the next slide. So roads, we maintain over 400 miles of roads, and we do all the storm response to roads. So when we had the big freeze around Christmas, just before Christmas, we had our roads team out working on keeping the county roads rolling for everybody. And after that, the after action report from that was really actually pretty exciting. We actually have an innovative roads team that kind of is trying out some new things to keep our roads open and clear. And if anyone wants more information about that, I could forward the email that Monty sent after that event, because it was an odd event and kept our roads slick as ice for a few days, as we all know. Jefferson County Parks is a big part, and we'll talk about this more later, but we have a number of parks in our county. And as we have moved through the COVID-19 pandemic, people have gone outside more, and we're seeing more interest in our parks. And the photo here is of the Chimacum Creek Beach Park, which is half Jefferson County, half Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. We collaborate to manage that waterfront park in Irondale, and it's probably my favorite park. I grew up a block from there. So, and then we have our sheriff's office, who works around the clock, 24/7, 365 days a year. And I've gotten to know some of the members of that team personally over the last couple of years, and I really appreciate their commitment to and service to the community. I love the picture of Quinn in the middle of the slide. Quinn Gruelle, our elections director, and our now auditor, Brenda Huntingford, counting ballots there with the tabulator. But just this week, they're pulling ballots out of the box, and ballots are flooding in on the levy vote for East Jefferson Fire. So let's see. And then, of course, public health, managing everything from, mom and child care through the Nurse Family Partnership and COVID vaccinations for the community, other vaccinations for the community. Our public health department is one of our largest departments, and they do a lot more than just community health. They also take care of solid waste kind of problem sites. And anyway, I won't go into all that detail, but we have our weed board taking care of weeds around the county. We have a new weed coordinator, so I think we're going to see a lot of activity coming out of our weed board in the coming years. And then, of course, solid waste. All of us depend on our solid waste department, and we have a great solid waste manager, Al Cairns. So county does a lot. This is probably not even half of it, but I just wanted people to have a sense of the diversity of the services we provide. And Mark is going to talk to you about the team that works to provide those services.
So after a 20-year career in the U.S. Army, I retired in Vancouver, and 3 months later went to work for Clark County. And prior to that, I had absolutely no idea what county governments did. And, you know, the 3,900 of these across the U.S., 3,900 counties. And, you know, counties are remarkably complex organizations, and you can see that on this chart. We have 11 different elected officials, of course, the governing board, the county commissioners, and then 8 other elected officials. And then as county administrator, I have 7 departments that report to me. And of course, I'm accountable to the Board of County Commissioners for their work and how well they perform it. And maintaining harmony amongst all of these different elected offices and county departments is an easy task in this county, because the work ethic we have here and the collegiality that exists in this county is remarkable. And collectively, we're all pulling the beer wagon down the street, getting all the work done. On the right side of the slide, you can see what the Jefferson County family is comprised of. And I won't go through all those numbers individually, but I need to point out that after the Great Recession in 2008, 2009, the county shed 30 or 35 employees to help cope with the financial difficulties that Great Recession inflicted on Jefferson County and City of Port Townsend and most governments in the country. And we just now in 2023 have returned to the full-time equivalent employee count of 305 that existed in this county back in 2008. And so the difference between the 305 or so and the 360, that 55 difference, is comprised of folks that we call clerk hires that are not full-time employees, but that we hire to do work. For example, we have a number of clerk hire employees who do custodial work, taking care of our facilities. And we have part-time folks in our parks department and elsewhere in the county. And all 360 of these folks are dedicated to providing the citizens of this county the best service that they can.
And it's still not enough, right? I mean, you know, as a county commissioner, we often get calls from constituents saying, this is taking too long. The line at the transfer station was too long today. And, you know, we have a lot of people working in unison to get services out to the community, but we still learn that often we still don't have enough, but we're limited, constrained by the county budget. So we try and do the best with what we have, and we can do a lot with the team we have. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about, in 2022, we had a couple of transitions, and we also had some core stability in our team. And I want to just go through this slide and talk about each of the individuals on this slide. On the top left, that's our new Central Services Director, Chris Goy. And he came to us from the city of Philadelphia, and he's a wonderful addition to the county family and takes care of all the internal, the buildings, the vehicles, all of the things that the county family depends on to do the work that they do. That's Chris's wheelhouse. Immediately prior to Chris being the Central Services Director, Mark McCauley was our Central Services Director and Deputy County Administrator. And we recruited him to step up and be our county administrator, and he thankfully agreed. And we are thrilled to have Mark serving in the role that he's serving in. He has a lot of experience and has provided some continuity and stability to the county that we could not have gotten anywhere else. The next gentleman there with the skeptical look over his glasses down his nose is Monty Reinders, our Public Works Director, and he's got the largest team in the county. I think 80 was on the last slide. He's got 80 folks who work for him. He's got big projects on deck right now, the Port Hadlock sewer, a lot of solid waste improvements, the roads department. Every time anything goes south on the roads, like a storm, Monty's team is up at all hours of the night, getting the snow plows on the road, getting the sand trucks out. So Monty is an incredible asset for the county, and I adore working with him. Sheriff Knowles, the next guy on the screen there, and he's our recently reelected Jefferson County Sheriff. And we really, I've formed a good working relationship with Sheriff Knoll because I live in Port Hadlock, so I'm the closest one to the sheriff's office, and I enjoy our collegial relationship and also his just his way of being in the world. He's a wonderful sheriff, and I appreciate his leadership. He's got a great team of people working for him as well. We had some key transitions in the court system, and I think most of you know that Brandon Mack is our new judge, Superior Court judge, and Ruth Gordon has retired with the last, Amanda Hamilton was elected to take the clerk spot. So anyway, great transitions there, good succession planning. And I feel like we have kind of a breath of fresh air in the courthouse with these folks. So anything you want, I think you wanted to add a couple things on this slide, Mark.
Yeah, I do. Yes. I like to say that Jefferson County is maturing a little bit. You know, we're threadbare, or at least we were a number of years ago when I arrived. I know Philip Morley told me that as a department director, I was going to have a sharp pencil, and I was going to have to roll up my sleeves and actually dig in and do work myself. And boy, was he right. But we made some staffing improvements in the county that I want to highlight. So until recently, we only had one person doing the county payroll for 300 plus employees. And that's really a dangerous and risky thing, because if that person, God forbid, got hit by a bus, how would we pay our employees? So we now have two payroll folks, and we're really happy about that. And in our HR department, until recently, we had one person handling HR matters. And the industry standard for HR, there's a ratio, HR staff to the number of employees. It's about 100 to 110 employees per HR employee. And we have 2 HR people now, up from 1, and we have 360 employees. So our ratio is 180 to 1. And so our 2 HR people, they work hard, they do great work, and we're grateful for them. We also now have a dedicated finance manager. When I was Central Services Director, I also managed the county budget. Judy Shepard, who was our chief accountant, is now our dedicated finance manager, and that's helping us manage our resources much better than previously. We've added a database manager. Unbelievable that an organization of our size, with the software systems we have, doesn't have someone who can manipulate data in databases to create reports and queries for the employees here to increase their productivity. So we're thrilled to have a young man named Scott Carpenter that we took from the Seattle area. And then lastly, we have a dedicated communications specialist who just started this week. Her name's Wendy Davis. I think many on the call might know Wendy. But she's a part-time communications specialist and will help the county tell its story in the coming months and years. So yeah, we have to continue maturing, but we've taken some large steps.
And Mark, I forgot to mention Judge Harper. I'm sorry. Judge Harper served as our Superior Court judge for 20 years, and he was a steady hand on the wheel in the Superior Court. And we all, I think all in the community, appreciate his service. So he handed the reins over to Brandon Mack, which we're excited about, but Judge Harper was a wonderful judge for our community.
All right. Now, every slide presentation has to have a bucket load of numbers in it. And believe me, when you look at the financial reports for the county, we have thousands of lines of budget, both revenue and expense, in 60 different funds. And that's why Judy Shepard, as our finance manager, is such a great addition to our staff. But I just wanted to do a sort of a gloss over here of some big numbers. Starting with the upper left, the county budget for 2023 is 81 million, and we've seen serious growth there, but there are a number of factors that are causing that sizable increase in the county budget. Most significant of which is the Hadlock Sewer. That's a $33 million project, and money's beginning to flow into the county. And as it flows in, Monty will cause it to flow out as he begins to award contracts to build that facility. The other funds, other than the general fund budget, is about 26 million, and we're seeing about $1 million in budget growth there every year. And that's related to inflation and other factors. And then other funds, 60 million. Now, I should point out that some of the budget here is internal to the county, where the IT department, facilities and fleet and equipment, those are internal service funds, and they provide, as Heidi said, they provide services to other county departments. And in doing so, they have to bill those county departments for that support. And so there's roughly 15 million in this total budget that is represented by internal county activities. So if you were to strip that out, budget related to activities outside the county would be about 65 million. And then you can see our large departments, and this is pretty much in numerical order, Public Works being the largest, and then you see the tri-area sewer. You know, in past years, that tri-area sewer number would have been less than 1 million. But because of the sewer construction that is on the horizon, that fund is now burgeoning. Sheriff's budget is always large. You know, we've got to keep those patrol deputies and traffic deputies on the road. And then, of course, public health and non-departmental. This is sort of a catch-all. This is where we pay for our indigent defense attorneys. This is where we pay for our insurance through the Washington County's risk pool, and a variety of other expenses that the county has to pay. And then on the right side, this is just a smattering of our revenue sources, and I put the large ones in here and some that might be of interest. You see property taxes, most of that comes to the general fund, but property taxes also fund roads. And one thing I want to point out here is that for many years, the road fund would give $720,000 to the general fund to help pay for law enforcement. And the county would use that 720 to cover traffic deputies in the sheriff's office. And recently, the county has begun to reduce that, what we call the traffic law enforcement diversion. We reduced it by 50,000 in 2022, and we've reduced it by another 50,000 in 2023. And we're looking, when we put our budget together for the next biennium, we're going to try to reduce that even further so that our road department has more money that they can use to leverage grants from the state and the federal governments. And our next biggest revenue source is sales taxes. And, you know, if you think back to the Great Recession, property taxes stay roughly the same. Assessed value might go down, but the mill rate goes up. So we collect pretty much the same amount in property taxes, whether we're in boom times or whether we're in recession. But this sales tax number, this is where the county is most vulnerable to downturns in economic activity. And then, of course, grants Our staff, public health and public works in particular, are very talented in leveraging local money to get money from the state government and from the federal government. And then, of course, motor vehicle fuel taxes. As we migrate towards electric vehicles, people are buying less gasoline at the gas pumps. And so hopefully the state will come up with some mechanism to ensure that money to public works comes from both the operators of electric vehicles and folks who use gasoline or diesel powered vehicles in the future. And then the last one I'll talk about is payment in lieu of taxes. Those are monies that come from the federal government because we have a large area in our county that's covered by forest, either at state or at federal level. And the state and the federal government, they're both exempt from property taxes. And so this is money that comes to us to compensate us for those properties that are exempt from property taxes. And so we rely on this heavily every year. And we're hoping that this is a permanent revenue source that isn't subject to periodic appropriation by the Congress. And so, okay, that's it for the number slides until a little bit later. All right, well, so Heidi and I are going to tag team on this, and I'm going to cover the left side, challenges and opportunities. So if you go to the county website, you can find a strategic plan on the website, but it's from 2010, clearly obsolete. So we have retained a firm called Barry Dunn, and next week we're going to have our initial meeting to plan out the strategic plan development process. And I just want people to know on the call that we're going to have an extensive public outreach as we develop this plan. We exist to serve the public, and we need to know what the public expects us to do and would like to see us do that we're not doing now, or reinforce the things we're doing that they'd like to see more of. And so I'm excited about that. The county has, in the past 5 years, embarked on sort of a rebirth technologically. We have implemented half a dozen new software systems. We migrated to VoIP telephones. We've got a new financial management system now called Munis. We just made our first payroll using the Munis human capital management system on the 5th of January. And we also have a new permitting software in community development and environmental public health called EnerGov. We need to continue working that. It's sort of been a rough transition, but we've got many high quality people working on improving that as we move forward. And I'd also like to point out and give a hat tip to Matt Stewart, our road superintendent. Between him and Lou Johnson, our fleet manager, we've managed to transition to smaller truck platforms with modular equipment sets so that you can lift off a sand spreader on the back of the truck, and you can put something on the back that would allow it to spread tar or other liquids. In essence, these are multi-purpose vehicles, and they don't require a CDL to drive. And so every one of our road crew operators can now do the work that used to be done by people that had to have a CDL. And so the road crews are now much more productive as a result of that and much more versatile. All right, now a couple of challenges. I think you all have seen the impacts of inflation. You all shop for groceries. 2021, the inflation rate for the Seattle area for the full year was 5%. 2022, the inflation rate was what, 8.4. So everything the county buys is going up in cost at an incredibly rapid rate. But as you remember on the revenue slide, our property taxes are capped at 1%. And so when costs go up faster than revenues, that creates a structural deficit that we always have to struggle with year to year as we put our budgets together. Now, coupled with inflation, inflation and recessions typically move in tandem. we're expecting a recession. There are a lot of leading financial indicators that tell us that it's on the way. Sales of existing homes, I think, are down 35 to 40%, and there are other indicators that are flashing recession as well. And so we've tried to prepare ourselves for that by accumulating some reserves, and we have strategies to cope with it. But we just hope that if it comes, it's not of a long duration and that it's not a deep recession. Everyone knows about the cost of housing. I know the house that I bought here in 2017 went up about 80% in value since I bought it 5 years ago. In fact, if I had to move here now, I could not buy the same house. And so the cost of housing and housing shortage contributes to another bullet on the chart, the one at the bottom, related to recruiting and retaining staff. We've had a number of employees that have signed on with the county, and then 6 months later, they have to resign and move elsewhere because they simply can't find housing, or if they can find it, they can't afford it. And then, of course, the homelessness challenge. A little bit later, we'll talk about some of the things the county's done to help address that crisis. And then climate change. I think we all know about the king tide we just had recently, and how properties, businesses on port property were flooded by water coming in. So a continual challenge there. And then, of course, the pandemic. I think we're in the endemic stage, but still that was a remarkably costly challenge for the county. And I'm just glad our staff was able to step up and handle it. And so, Heidi, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, and I'm not going to dig into the priorities in progress because the rest of our slides have addressed these. I'm just going to say a couple of things. I mean, when I was elected into this role for the community, I brought an ethic of stewardship. And I think it's important to always underscore that it's better to take care of what you have than to have to replace what you have. So I think that what I've seen at the county since I've been here is a real embrace of that ethic and taking care of what we have and trying to do better with what we have than, because we, as Mark just said, are constrained by how much we can grow the budget or buy new things. So we have to take care of what we have. And I'd say that's emblematic of our roads crew and our shop. They're master stewards of the equipment that they have, and they spread that throughout their teams. And I'd say that public works, public health, to a team, people are aware of making do with what we have and taking care of the assets we have. And I think that that's something that I was maybe surprised to realize in the county when I got here. Not surprised, but pleasantly surprised. And also grateful for our team for embracing that ethic. And we're going to talk about these other bullets on the priorities in progress through the next slide. So I'm going to move us along a little bit because I know we're going long here. Next slide, Mark. Okay.
There we go. All right. So we talked about housing being a challenge, but there are reasons to be encouraged as we address that crisis. And I'd like to talk briefly about what we have here. In the upper left, you see the new affordable housing project that OLECAP has worked very hard to create. It's called Seventh Haven, and it's at the intersection of 7th Street and Hendricks. And it's located next to county offices. Just behind it, you can see where community development and public health are housed up there. We call that the Castle Hill Complex. And the county made significant contributions to that project, about $1 million worth. The county created a new 0.1% sales tax for affordable housing, and 600,000 of that new revenue stream went to OLECAP to help with this project, and that added to $75,000 we gave a number of years ago out of the Affordable Housing Fund. And then the land upon which that building sits was county land, and we sold it to OLECAP for about 10% of its assessed value. So they got a $350,000 parcel of land for $35,000. So you add all that up, that's about $1 million. And then on the lower left, you see Caswell Brown. That's our new community that is located off of Mill Road. I don't know if you all remember, but we had a homeless population housed at the county fairgrounds for a number of years during the pandemic. And we needed to move those folks. And when these parcels became available, 5 of them, I think 30 acres all told, in conjunction with receiving ARPA money, we were able to purchase those parcels and for $600,000, and then we made quite a bit of money available to OLECAP to prepare that site for occupancy. And you can see some of that tiny houses there. I think that was a community build, Heidi, was it?
Yep.
They built those. I think there are 10 on site now, and I think they're building 10 more. And the county's made funds available for the community build folks to build these things. And there's power at the site, there's water, we have showers, you know, it's a community, and the residents there came up with their own set of community rules to live by, which were more stringent than the rules that OLECAP had come up with. So anyway, I was heavily involved in this, and I'm very proud of what the county did there. And then the next two, the photos on the right, on the top, you see a house that was built by Habitat for Humanity, and then the bottom picture there is a property in Hadlock that Habitat purchased, and the county gave Habitat $500,000 to enable them to purchase that property. And I mean, Habitat means business. I don't know if you've seen the 6 units on Landis Street that are being built, but they're going up in short order. I mean, that's how I get to and from work. And the progress there has just been impressive. And pretty soon we'll have 6 families in there with a warm and comfortable place to live. And then a significant thing to note about the property in Hadlock is that as we build our sewer there, we need hookups, we need flow, and we also need people to pay their sewer bill to help pay for the operation of that new sewer facility, and this is a big step in that direction.
So the sewer, here we are, $33 million project. This map gives you the outline of the phase 1 sewer service area. The parcel we were just talking about is the upper left yellow, long yellow parcel. It's an old airstrip just north of the elementary school and the Jefferson County Library in Port Hadlock. So it felt like a really logical place to have workforce housing for families in the community. So Habitat is moving forward. They're in the process of doing community outreach, and I've gone to a couple of those meetings. It's really heartening to see their plan kind of coming to life. I don't want to say a lot about the Hadlock sewer, except for it is like the big elephant in the room. It's the big project the county's working on, and I included some project milestones here. So final design will be done this fall. Site work will be done also in the fall. And then the wastewater treatment plant will be done the end of 2024. The collection system, which will be kind of the bigger pipes running through all the streets, the public works team has been in the process of securing easements for those, and those will be done the end of 2024. And then all the individual connections to houses will happen through the summer of 2025, and the goal is to have this completed in the fall of 2025. So I live just outside the sewer boundary, so I am watching this keenly, and will provide updates whenever I can. I'll be driving by the sewer project as these milestones get achieved. So very excited about this, as it's going to expand the availability of workforce housing in our community significantly. Next slide. And I think we got to speed it up a little bit, Mark.
Okay, I can do that. All right, so this slide represents our community development department. A very important department to the future of this community. We have to balance the preservation of our rural character and the preservation of our delicate ecosystem with steady development, because we know we're going to continue to develop, and we want to develop in a responsible way. Community development's had a number of challenges. The new Energov permitting system, they're working diligently on that, but it is taking time away from other activities, and they're dealing with record permit activity, and they've also had a fairly high level of employee turnover because of the stress in that department. And then in the upper left, you see the Jefferson County Comprehensive Plan. We're about to embark on an update to the 2018 plan. We have to have it completed by 2024, and there will be substantial public involvement in the development of that comprehensive plan update.
So many of you probably know that the county has been paying close attention to the forests in our community, and we have done a contract with Chickadee Forestry, and Chickadee's done some thinning operations on some county-owned lands that are park areas like Trailhead Park, where you can park to get on the Larry Scott Trail out off of Cape George Road. And along with that, we've been talking with the Department of Natural Resources about some of the lands that they manage on behalf of Jefferson County, and trying to understand what our options are in terms of having an impact on some of the forests that are adjacent to other county-owned lands, and looking at ways to create connectivity between tracts of forest land and parks and other open space areas. So just a lot of active conversations on this. And then concurrent to that, we are in the process of putting out a request for proposals for a community wildfire prevention plan. This is something that East Jefferson Fire and Rescue has been encouraging us to do, and has been on my list of priorities since I walked in the door, because I've watched other communities around the Western states adopt these, and they're really helpful for helping residents think about what it means to live in a wildland urban interface, the WUI. So, we'll be over the next couple of years undertaking a community wildfire prevention planning process, and we'll be reaching out to the community to be involved in that. The two photos on the right here are from a forest down in Dabob Bay, in the area of the Dabob Bay Natural Area. We did a field tour with our state representatives and Commissioner Hillary Franz last summer, and Taylor Shellfish, just to take a tour of the Dabob Natural Area and fall in love with that place again. So we're grateful that members of our community in the past have had the foresight to protect these open spaces for the residents of Jefferson County now and in the future. So I think that's it on forest. If anyone wants to go deep on forest, just give me a call. I've been working on this issue a lot lately. So we're going to go into a little more depth on Parks and Rec, because it's such an important and valued part of our community, and such a the diversity of the kinds of parks that Jefferson County manages is really astounding. The photo on the top left, you'll recognize, is the portion of the Larry Scott Trail near milepost 0, just coming out of the Port of Port Townsend. Our parks are used actively for Little League, Big League, adult softball leagues, and there are a number of parks that have, fields on them. I don't know if the rest of you have noticed the popularity of pickleball. We've got pickleball courts going in, I feel like, everywhere, and everyone's playing pickleball, and I've got pickleball paddles here in my office. So if anyone ever wants to go play in front of the courthouse for a little break, I'd welcome a match. And then this bottom right photo is one of my favorite spots in the county. That's the shelter at the East Beach Park on Marrowstone Island. And this was from a number of years ago. This was the dedication of the new fireplace there, which is a Rumford design fireplace. And you can take your own firewood and paper out there and have a fire and cook your hot dogs and sit on the beach. And it's just a beautiful spot if you've never been there. So East Beach Park on Marrowstone. And then the bottom left here, we're going to talk about more on the next slide, but this is a super exciting project that was completed in 2022. And this is an accessible park. It's called the JUMP, the Jefferson Universal Movement Playground. And I love this aerial photo of it because it just looks fun. It looks like a place you want to be. I walk around the it's in the H.J. Carroll Park in Hadlock, Chimacum. And I walk the trails around H.J. Carroll a lot. And I just love the cacophony of children laughing that I always hear coming from that park. There's so much fun happening there. So just really thrilled with the collaborative nature of this project. And Mark's gonna tell you a little bit more about the jump playground on the next slide.
So the Jump Playground, to me, represents a case study in cooperation among local residents, local organizations, state government, and county government. Because if you look at the bottom, you see this wonderful facility cost a total of $1,300,000. And if you look at where those monies came from, the $223,000 cash raised in the local community. And the Michael Berry Memorial Foundation gave $50,000. And I believe, Heidi, his son was at the dedication, and
He was.
Made a short talk about this facility and how proud his dad would have been. And then Jefferson Healthcare kicked in some money, and the county kicked in $475,000 out of their capital fund. The state RCO grant, $500,000, and then labor and materials donated by some of our local citizens. And so, I mean, amazing how people came together to make this a reality.
Yeah, I know that one of the entities that donated to that project was Tim Thomas with his excavating company, and providing all the groundwork that needed to be done to get that site ready. So grateful for his generosity on this. Okay, so Parks and Rec. I mean, I just wanted to include these few slides. We are seeing an increase in demand for our parks, and we are not currently doing a concurrent increase in the budget of parks. We did add a couple of staff to help with maintenance and, you know, driving around and cleaning the bathrooms and cleaning out the garbage cans. But the increase in popularity of our parks has been astounding over the last couple of years. And you can see it there. It's just been off the charts, really. I mean, it's on this chart, but it's been a steep increase. So the Parks and Rec Committee is doing a planning process and planning for even more demand for our parks in the future. But I think I was at an event last night, actually at the Governor's Mansion in Olympia, and for the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Coalition. And they did a presentation. This is a statewide trend that everywhere, all the municipalities and counties and park districts and DNR, everyone who has recreation lands are seeing an increase in demand for access to those places. So, you know, it's due to, you know, COVID partially, and the guidance we all got, it was safe to go outside. So everyone went outside, but also to an increase in people moving to our community. I think if we looked at a graph of permit applications over the last few years, we'd see a similar uptick here. It's been going up every year by dozens, and if not 100 permits a year. So there's just a lot of things that are on the increase, which makes us have to be even craftier at doing more with what we've got. And I think that the technology tune-ups that Mark was talking about earlier will build efficiency into the system and build some capacity, but all of these things are going to take time, are taking time. And I just ask the community to be patient with us, which I know for some of you is hard. So Mark, you can go to the next slide. This is just another, I mean, look at that, off the charts. H.J. Carroll Reserve Community Events. In 2020, they were around 100, and last year they were 600. So it's just, you know, huge uptick in demand. Next slide. Same thing here is an increase in the cumulative economic benefits for the local economy. So as people come to the parks, as we build the parks, as we built the jump playground, there was an economic impact to our community. So this builds our budget, but it's not concurrent to the amount of demand we're seeing for use of those parks.
Yeah, and before we move on, I asked Matt Tyler and Chris Macklin. Chris Macklin runs our recreation programs. I just wanted to share some numbers because physical activity is so important in the development of youth. I just wanted to talk about a couple of programs. So they run a junior hoops basketball league. There are 269 children enrolled in that league, and we have 38 volunteers to help coach those children. The Spring Soccer League has 292 children that have signed up with 43 coaches. The Fall Soccer League, 191 children. And then youth camps for wrestling, basketball, and volleyball and other things. 110 children signed up for those camps thus far. And so just a little dip into the metrics there about our program and how important they are for the young folks in our community.
So this is another big elephant in the room that we're all aware of, that we've just been coming through the crunch of a pandemic, and we, at the county had to change just about everything we did, which was trial by fire there, and spooling up Dr. Berry's weekly community updates, which are now every 2 weeks through the next couple of months as we kind of watch and wait and see what the pandemic is going to do, as it feels like it might be ramping down and becoming more of an endemic. We learned a lot of new ways of doing business, moving to online services. Here we are together on Zoom today. Mark was asking me a few days ago, where do we go for this meeting? I said, we're on Zoom. We're on Zoom again. So a lot of Zoom meetings. Our public health department, I think every single one of them is a saint. They have been doing contact tracing. They have been working overtime on every single front to deal with the impacts of the pandemic on our community. And I'm super grateful for all of them. I'm not going to name any one person, but I'm just every single person in public health, which is, as I mentioned earlier, a large department within the county. A lot of the people who normally had other job duties transitioned to working on pandemic response when we had a lot of cases in our community and had to do case counts or case tracking. So super grateful for their flexibility. And I think we've all learned some new ways of working in the world, and that will help with our stewardship ethic going forward, being more efficient and effective as we proceed. So one of the outcomes of the pandemic was a lot of federal support for communities, and Mark's going to talk a little bit about both the CARES tranche of funding that came to the county and also ARPA funding that the community got and how we deployed that in the community.
Thank you, Heidi. So all told, we haven't received all this funding. We have another 1.692 million in ARPA money that we're expecting to receive sometime this year. When we receive that, the total in federal aid that's pandemic related will be about 12 million. That began with the CARES Act at the beginning of the pandemic, and that amount was 2.4 million. And when the county received these funds, it was concerned about how to distribute those monies. And so the Intergovernmental Collaborative Group was formed to have a discussion about these funds and to decide how to distribute them. And so that group allocated the money and in a number of different categories, and it resulted in about 37 separate grants, mostly of small dollar numbers. Then when the ARPA money came, we had a discussion with the board, and the board agreed that rather than distributing small amounts of money, we wanted to move the needle on a number of larger, important projects. And so this is a recap of most of the funds that have been allocated. There are smaller amounts here and there, but You can see almost 3.5 million for Hadlock Sewer. And some of this has been dedicated to the sewer simply for liquidity purposes. And once the sewer is completed, some of these funds may be available for distribution for other projects. But there's the $1.5 million for Caswell Brown. We gave PUD 900,000 for broadband. Gave the city 500,000 for Evans Vista. Here's the 500,000 to Habitat for Humanity, and you can read the rest. And we're currently looking to distribute another 835,000 in ARPA funds. We have a simple RFP out on our website and issued a press release, and we have project proposals coming in. The deadline is 10 February. And subsequent to the 10th, the board will have to consider all the projects that have been proposed and make decisions about where the 835,000 will go. But this has been very helpful in advancing some very important local initiatives.
So, one thing that I shared this last time I did the mid-year update with you guys in the middle of last year. And one thing I shared was all of the committees that your commissioners sit on. Each of us sit on or hold about 20 roles in the community. And many of those are committee assignments. And many of those committees are made up of community volunteers who donate, a few hours a month to be involved on a topic area. And they really become our subject matter experts on these areas. So I would say, think about how you might want to be more involved. Reach out. I'm happy to be the first point of contact for any interest in any of these committees. People often ask how they can be part of our regular meetings. So right now we meet at Monday morning at 9 a.m., starting at 9 a.m. every Monday morning. Every once in a while it's a Tuesday. So look at the county website. If there's a federal holiday on a Monday, our meeting will be on a Tuesday. And we also don't meet on the 5th Mondays of a month if there is a 5th Monday. But generally, our meetings are Monday mornings at 9 a.m. in the courthouse here in our chambers. And you're welcome to come in person or attend through Zoom. We're doing hybrid meetings right now. So we welcome community input and engagement, and would love to see more of you coming to our BOCC meetings. I know before the pandemic, there were more people coming to the meetings regularly. And I think I'm just trying to encourage people to go back to those habits. You can call or email our office to make an appointment with any of us, any of our staff here, or any of the 3 commissioners. And then I included the list of the citizen advisory committees that currently have vacancies. And you'll see it's a wide diversity of topics: Conservation Futures, the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board. I'm not going to read them all, but you can go on the county website and see the list of vacancies. Some of those vacancies are specific to one of the commissioner districts, or to like agriculture. But I would welcome any interest in serving on any of these committees. I think it's a really valuable way to be part of the community. And I would just say that I got my start in politics when County Commissioner Richard Voigt appointed me to the Planning Commission when I was 26 years old. And I served on the Planning Commission for a couple of years before I got a full-time job in Seattle. But it was a really valuable experience. And it was during the time that we adopted our first comp plan under the Growth Management Act. So it was a very busy time for the Planning Commission back then. And I remember those Planning Commission meetings being packed rooms of citizens, and it was super inspiring to see that many people caring and showing up to be part of what we were doing. A couple of key efforts that we've mentioned previously in our presentation today that we'll be reaching out for community engagement on is our strategic planning process. Community involvement is my #1 priority in that process, and I am the commissioner who's going to sit through that entire strategic planning process along with Mark and others on our team. So stay tuned for strategic planning community outreach meetings. And then also we will be pulling together volunteers to participate in the community wildfire planning process. And it's important to have communities from all over the county, especially a diversity of geographies within the county represented on that community wildfire prevention plan, because you know what's going on in your neighborhood better than the rest of us. So if anyone wants to just start a conversation about being more involved, feel free to reach out to me or Mark, and we'll either answer your questions or get you pointed to in the right direction. Anything else on that, Mark?
Nope, I think we're to this slide.
So thank you both. That is such a fabulous overview of where you are and where you're going and where you've been. The one thing I want to call everyone's attention to in the chat was a thank you from Habitat and where to reach out and get more information and join their mailing list. And then you answered almost all of the questions that came in from Facebook. So fabulous job. But one of the things that you touched on were the parks, and you went into that in detail. And several of the questions that came in were relative to that, whether the existing parks or any new parks and trails that might be ADA compliant, multimodal, or specifically including equine or e-bikes.
I could talk a little bit about the, I'll start with the last word you just said, e-bikes. We've been talking about developing a policy around electric bikes for the Larry Scott Trail. And I think our first change there might be to implement a speed limit on the trail. I don't think a lot of people go over 15 miles an hour on the trail, but I've heard of people doing it, and we want to set a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit on the Larry Scott Trail. So that would, some people ride faster than that on their non-e-bikes. So anyway, I think that setting some kind of practical sidebars on use of the trail is the right first step. The policy around e-bikes is a big statewide conversation right now, which I've been paying as much attention as I can to, which honestly hasn't been a lot. But I am sitting on the Olympic Discovery Trail board, sitting in another board, Peninsula Trails Coalition board meetings, and it is a conversation we're having on that committee. Let's see, what else were parts of your list of parks questions? I mean, I don't know of, I'm trying to think. There was a question about multimodal and accessible. You know, a lot of the H.J. Carroll Park is accessible. Not some of our parks are not super accessible, but I even think when I think through those, the ones that are less accessible aren't even Jefferson County parks. One thing that's going to affect accessibility of parks is these king tides, right? So we're losing our Oak Bay Park. It's a campground, and we already closed the campground for half the year. And in that second to last king tide, we literally lost more of the park to the tide. Also the Indian Island Park, that long road that goes down the hill to the beach, that parking lot was full of logs after that second to last king tide. So, because there was a storm surge associated with that one. So there's a lot of questions about how we steward our waterfront parks in light of king tides in the future, because it just seems like they're getting more, higher tides. And I'm sure that Betsy's dealing with this every day down at the boat school in Hadlock. She's right on the water there. So we're all working on this together, and it's going to be something the community is going to have to pull together on for the rest of our lives, honestly. So that's a big question mark and area of focus with our parks. We have had conversations about reopening some of the Chimicum Park, the one by the Chimicum schools, reopening some of there's an old kind of mothballed campground there. But with the demand for camping going up, it's not in the immediate future, but it's something that we're kind of starting to think about planning for, is reopening that campground. Yeah, so those are my anecdotal reports on parks. Is there anything more specific that you want, Arlene, on that?
No, I think that really does answer that Facebook, several questions on Facebook that were relative to that. So thank you. And I know that they can reach out to you personally if they have more specific information or suggestions that they might want you to hear. We have a
Or
couple-
Matt Tyler, our Parks Director.
Okay.
I mean, he's wonderful and he knows all of this stuff. He
we
can answer any question instantly.
will refer to them to Matt.
Yeah.
A couple of quick things that came in, and then we're going to have to send the rest of what is now teeing up to you post this meeting, because we want to be respective of your time and all of our guests. A quick question is, where can they find the committee members for each of your committees that are listed on the website?
Yeah, on our homepage, at the top, there's a series of choices you can make, and if you click on government, a menu will come down, and then you can select from boards and commissions A through E, boards and commissions F through Z. And if you click on the appropriate link there, it'll bring up a list. Then you can click on the committee that you're interested in, and it should have a list of committee members there.
And if it doesn't, you can reach out to us, and one of our staff, Julie Shannon, she's in charge of the lists of all the committee members and the vacancies. So she has those lists in a notebook here in the